Penguin Random House Audio presents Chasing Phil, the adventures of two undercover agents with the world's most charming con man. By David Howard. Read for you by Joe Ochman. Trust everybody, but cut the cards. Finley Peter Dunn. Prologue. February 15th, 1977. Jim Wedick yanked at his collar as he walked across the parking lot toward the Thunderbird Motel, a sprawling Native American-themed lodge in suburban Minneapolis. It was early evening, and the sun had long ago plummeted below the tabletop horizon, leaving the temperature hovering just above zero. Still, Wedick was overheating in his blue pinstriped three-piece suit. His heart banged out a punk rock cadence as he strode alongside Jack Brennan, both of them working hard to look nonchalant. They eyed a massive totem pole, erected for maximum visibility from Interstate 494, then entered the Thunderbird's spacious lobby, packed with bearskin rugs, peace pipes, teepee-shaped light fixtures. Once the warmth of the lobby hit them, the agents shrugged off their overcoats and scanned the room. Wedick was vaguely aware of the sweat soaking the armpits of his Brooks Brothers dress shirt, but his suit coat was staying on. He needed as many layers as possible to conceal the Nagra SNST audio recorder lashed to the small of his back. The device was diminutive for the era, 5.5 inches long, just under 4 inches wide, and 1 inch thick, but was still larger than a pack of cigarettes, and right now it felt like a cinder block. He'd snipped a hole in his pants pocket to accommodate a remote control unit. This allowed him to inconspicuously flip the recorder on and off, but he noticed outside that the setup also allowed cold air into his nether regions. Wedick, an FBI agent who had just turned 27, was about to begin his first undercover assignment. Brennan was 4 years older, but he was also a first-timer in this kind of role. They both understood the stakes. They had traveled from their post in Gary, Indiana, to meet Phil Kitzer. A high school dropout from Chicago, Kitzer had over the past 15 years swindled banks, real estate developers, entrepreneurs, and everyday investors out of countless millions of dollars. The agents had come to see if they might crack open a window into his activities. The odds looked steep. Their informant had told them that Kitzer possessed a preternatural ability to read people. Wedick and Brennan had already learned firsthand how slippery he could be. But they were young and ambitious and maybe a little naive, and had lobbied hard for permission to fly to Minneapolis to take a shot. Their bosses had agreed reluctantly. Neither Brennan nor Wedick had received any training in undercover work. The FBI had only recently begun to offer such instruction, and they were using their real names. Nonetheless, they had, on their own, concocted an elaborate cover story about being young con men in training. Wedick had gone as far as creating a phony shell corporation. After circling the lobby, they spotted a sign that read, "Cocktail Fantasies in the Intimate Atmosphere of Our Exclusive Powwow Cocktail Lounge." That was the meeting place. They took a few tentative steps inside the powwow lounge and scanned the room. It was mostly empty, no surprise for a Tuesday night. One couple lingered over drinks at a corner table, and there was a gentleman in a suit and tie sitting alone at a long wooden bar that swooped gently into the shape of a question mark. Kitzer was perched atop one of the bar stools, which were designed to look like tom-tom drums on teepee legs. He sat with his back to the bar, facing the door. He was obviously waiting for them. He puffed on a pell-mell through a white plastic filter as they approached. The FBI agents crossed the carpeted room. Wedick sucked in a breath and produced an enthusiastic grin, willing himself to feel as if it were the most natural thing in the world for him to be there. He stuck out his hand. "Hi, I'm Jim." Kitzer's expression was cast iron as he appraised them, first one, then the other. "Christ," he said, "you guys look like a couple of feds." Part 1. The Chase. The Indian was standing with the rifle across his shoulders, his hands hanging over it. "You come out, you walk toward the moon," he said. "What if it ain't up yet?" The Indian spat. "You think I'd tell you to walk towards a moon that wasn't there?" Cormac McCarthy, The Crossing. Chapter 1. How to Steal a Bank. July 1976. Heading out to dinner on a summer Saturday night, Byron and Emma Haynes Prescott, not their real names, couldn't have expected much. Byron, a British banker, was meeting two Americans who had arrived at his door 2 days earlier to discuss acquiring his small 12-year-old bank, Seven Oak Finance Ltd. Haynes Prescott had put his bank, which was more of a depository really, up for sale more than a year before, attracting a parade of big shots who had rolled into London ready to cut a sweetheart deal. But he wasn't about to give it away. Haynes Prescott was only 36, so maybe the sharks expected to take advantage of his youth, or perhaps word had gotten out that he was flailing financially. Regardless, his latest suitor, Phil Kitzer, could easily have been just one more in the parade of empty suits with hollow offers. But Kitzer's arrival at Seven Oak had made an impression. At 43, he was wiry but dashing in his tailored suit, light blazing behind the eyes, brown hair parted on the left and swept back. Although his head looked slightly too large for his body, he had a narrow, creased face, a smile that revealed deep dimples, and the prominent chin of an early Hollywood star. He emanated a kind of effortless charisma unique to successful people. He'd arrived with a business partner, Paul Shavanik, who looked a decade younger. Shavanik had dark hair and black horn-rimmed glasses and was taller and heavier, but he was clearly second in command. Kitzer had talked up his background, then invited Byron and Emma for a follow-up meal at a swank London restaurant. As they settled in at their table, Kitzer was funny and charming with Emma. He described a stratospherically successful career. He had already owned an assortment of banks and insurance companies and had traveled the world brokering loans for the United Nations. He had global contacts across the uppermost strata of finance. All of that endeared him to the couple, but what happened after dessert made even more of an impression. Shavanik pulled Haynes Prescott aside and handed him an envelope. "Here, this is for your time," Shavanik said. "We want to talk. We're serious." Haynes Prescott opened it. Inside was $5,000 in cash. The negotiations for Seven Oak began the following week. Kitzer and Shavanik showed up at the bank daily, riding the tube 35 minutes to the suburbs from London's Britannica Hotel. Sitting in the office with Byron and Emma, they pored over financial statements and lists of depositors. As he grew more comfortable with the Americans, Haynes Prescott revealed the details of his situation. The rumors of his struggles were true. The bank was a smoking crater. Just a couple of months earlier, Seven Oak had promised readers of the Illustrated London News a return of 14% on deposits. If you have a minimum of £500 that you wish to invest safely and profitably, then send off the coupon below. But Haynes Prescott had siphoned off £175,000, about $300,000, in deposits to fund a business called Sidco. He'd used his accounting background to conceal this shortfall by preparing a false first-quarter report. He'd then sent the document to an accountant whom he'd paid to certify the fabricated figures before he submitted them to the UK's Board of Trade. Exactly how long Haynes Prescott could shield this financial sandcastle from the oncoming tides of government oversight was unclear. Beyond the £175,000, Seven Oak was £7,000 in the red to two banks with which it had relationships. Haynes Prescott was relieved to find that Kitzer wasn't put off by this. Kitzer assured him that none of that was any problem. In fact, he could help the Brit put his house back in order. As the summer wound down, they reached the crux of the negotiation: how much Kitzer and Shavanik would pay. Haynes Prescott wanted, at the bare minimum, £175,000, so he could erase his debt, file a truthful statement with the Board of Trade, and walk away clear. But Kitzer took a tough stance. "If you think that anybody is going to buy this bank and put £175,000 into it in cash, you are badly mistaken," he said. "That will never happen. That's one of the reasons you haven't sold the bank. You better come up with a better idea." "Phil, we can work it out," Haynes Prescott replied. "It doesn't have to be cash. We can come up with something." By then, he'd invested about 6 weeks in the Americans, and he felt pressured to file his late second-quarter paperwork with the government. Kitzer then furnished a better idea. He and Shavanik would provide a letter indicating that Sterling and Company, Shavanik's Milwaukee-based corporation, would transfer about £175,000 to cover the bank's debts.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?